Here's Peter G in season 1 telling Lois he'll do anything for his family. And here's Peter in season 15 selling Meg to pay off a bar tab. If you've been watching Family Guy since the late 90s, you know exactly when this show went sideways. See, early Family Guy had this whole thing where the characters were kind of normal people stuck in insane situations. Peter was dumb, but he loved his family. Lois wanted to be a mom. Stewie was trying to kill Lois and take over the world, which honestly made more sense than whatever he's doing now. Then the show got canceled, came back, and said, screw it, let's just turn everyone into walking punchlines. So which Family Guy character has changed the most? I'm ranking the main cast from least to most change. And trust me, when you see who's at number 1, you'll understand why the whole show feels different now. Let's get into it. Number 7, Chris Griffin. Starting at number 7, we got Chris G. And honestly, the kid barely changed at all. Which is kind of wild when you realize literally everyone else in the house lost their goddamn minds. Now don't get me wrong, Chris definitely has some shifts over the years. If you go back to the original 1998 pilot, Chris looks completely different. This dude looked homeless, barefoot, huge, built like somebody microwaved mashed potatoes into human form. Seth MacFarlane voiced him like a depressed gas station burnout who sells fake concert tickets outside a bowling alley. Then the show actually starts, and suddenly Chris gets a redesign package. Slimmed him down a little, gave him the iconic Buffalo Bill voice from Silence of the Lambs, threw a hoop earring on him like he was auditioning for a 2001 Limp Bizkit video, and then the earring just disappears forever, like a fart in the wind. Like Quagmire after somebody says, age of consent? Personality-wise though, Chris stayed mostly consistent. Sweet kid, but dumb as drywall. Wants approval from Peter, gets manipulated constantly. The only real evolution is that the writer slowly turned him into a complete degenerate. Early Chris was awkward around girls. Modern Chris knows every pornographic video ever made by heart, and his head explodes like a watermelon wrapped in rubber bands when they try to give his physical collection away. Season 7, full Buffalo Bill tuck dance in front of the whole school. Chris G at his finest. And then there's Herbert. Good Lord, Herbert. The joke started as creepy old neighbor. Then the show kept escalating it until Herbert was basically operating a retirement home sting operation. Eventually, Chris literally had to ask him, "Are you a pedophile?" Imagine being a teenager forced to clarify whether your elderly neighbor belongs on a registry. That's not character development, that's survival instincts. Still, compared to the rest of this family, Chris somehow remained the most normal person in the house, which says horrifying things about this house. His sister though? Yeah, about that. Number 6, Meg Griffin. At number 6 is Meg Griffin, and man, her story is just flat out depressing. In the early seasons, Meg was a pretty normal teenage girl. She had friends, went on dates. She worried about driver's licenses and prom. Sure, her family embarrassed her sometimes, but that's just what dysfunctional families do. Peter actually tried to help her. Lois gave her some game. Then somewhere around season 4, Meg stopped being a character and became the family's emotional dartboard. Everybody abuses her, constantly, physically, emotionally, spiritually. The whole "shut up, Meg" mutated into her entire identity. And it's not just verbal abuse. Peter literally chains her in the basement. Lois tells her to her face she's worthless. The whole family tries to abandon her at a fire station when she's a baby in a flashback. At one point, they're being robbed and Peter shoves Meg towards the burglars like a human shield. You know, normal dad stuff. In Seahorse Seashell Party, Meg finally snaps and calls the whole family out for being toxic parasites. For one glorious second, you think the show's finally going to acknowledge how insane this all is. Then the Griffins gaslight her into accepting the abuse again because apparently the family collapses unless somebody absorbs all the misery like an emotional air filter. Now to be fair, recent seasons eased up a little. Meg's got confidence now. She's athletic. Sometimes she even fights back. Cool. Still doesn't erase 15 years of psychological terrorism. Meg changed from awkward teenage daughter into human stress ball for the writers. And somehow, it gets worse from here. If you think the family's bad, wait till you hear what the neighbor's been up to. Number 5, Glenn Quagmire. Number 5 is Glenn Quagmire, and this dude's evolution feels like watching a sitcom character slowly become evidence in a court case. Early Quagmire was just a horny neighbor archetype. Dirty jokes, Hawaiian shirts, bachelor lifestyle. The joke was basically, look at this wild middle-aged creep who refuses to grow up. Then Family Guy kept pushing it further and further until Quagmire stopped acting like a sitcom pervert and started acting like somebody Chris Hansen would sprint toward. We're talking stalking, harassment, borderline felonies every episode. Full-blown predator behavior. There's literally scenes where he hits on underage girls, gets corrected on their age, and just changes the number himself like he's editing a typo. And the wildest part? 2000's television aired this with zero hesitation. Network executives really looked at that script and said, "Yup, primetime television." But somewhere along the way, Quagmire also became weirdly bitter and self-aware, especially during that legendary Brian rant. That scene is basically the writer saying, "Yeah, we know Brian sucks now. Here's Quagmire saying it out loud so you know we're in on the joke." Quagmire calls him a boring alcoholic who abandoned his own kid and pretends to be an intellectual while being dumb as rocks. He cooked him. Then around 2018, the showrunners clearly realized, yeah, maybe we should stop making this man a cartoon predator. So they toned him down. Now he's less criminal menace and more sad, lonely, middle-aged dude with emotional issues. Honestly, probably for the best. I don't need weekly reminders that Quagmire belongs within 500 feet of absolutely nobody. Hey, real quick, before we get to the top 4, if you're enjoying this descent, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss when we drop more content like this. And go ahead and like this video. It helps more than you think. Alright, back to the carnage. Number 4, Lois Griffin. Number 4 is Lois Griffin, and this one hurts because she used to be the entire emotional foundation of the show. If you paid attention in season 1, Lois is patient, caring, insanely talented, and basically the only reason the Griffin household doesn't collapse into chaos every single day. She gave up a rich heiress life, a potential Olympic career, and a shot at being a professional pianist to marry Peter Griffin. Let that sink in. She traded all of that for this. There's a moment in the first episode where Peter commits welfare fraud, and Lois goes to court to defend him. She tells the judge, "My husband may be thoughtless. He may even be stupid, but I know he only did this because he wanted to be a good husband and father." That's early Lois. She's the heart. Then the writers looked at her and said, "What if we made her dead inside?" And suddenly Lois became this wine-fueled suburban supervillain. She cheats on Peter, gets emotionally detached from the kids, starts screaming at grocery store employees like she's one unpaid bill away from becoming the Joker. And her relationship with Meg? Absolutely catastrophic. Early Lois supported Meg. Modern Lois talks to her like a frustrated prison warden. At some point, Lois stopped being the responsible parent and became just another chaotic disaster in the house. And that broke the balance of the show. Because old Family Guy worked because Lois grounded everybody else. Once she lost her shit, the entire house became a psychological demolition derby. Recent seasons try to give her more sympathetic moments. Trapped housewife, midlife crisis, feeling underappreciated. And honestly, those episodes help a little, but the damage is done. Lois went from emotionally stable backbone of the family to high-functioning suburban menace. And somehow, she's still not top 3. But at least Lois knows she's a mess. There's someone in this house who thinks he's better than everyone else. Number 3, Brian Griffin. At number 3 is Brian Griffin, and honestly, his fall from grace might be the most tragic thing on this entire list. Early Brian was smart, well-read, emotionally mature, and genuinely kind. He was the character who balanced out Peter's stupidity and gave the show its emotional backbone. If you want to see peak Brian, season 3 says it all in Brian Wallows and Peter Swallows. Brian gets a DUI, gets sentenced to community service, and ends up taking care of the shut-in old woman who used to be an opera singer. It's sincere, it's moving, and it actually won a freaking Emmy. That episode is proof that early Family Guy could tell stories with a real heart, and Brian was the center of that. But then something shifted. The show started using Brian as this mouthpiece for liberal talking points, and it all fell apart. He became this pretentious failed writer who lectures everyone about atheism and politics while being a massive hypocrite. He hits on every woman he meets, including Lois, his best friend's wife. He's a deadbeat dad who abandoned his own son. He preaches about morality while being a genuinely terrible person. And the show knows it. Quagmire's rant isn't just a character moment. It's the writers openly acknowledging, yeah, Brian's insufferable now. This dog became the physical form of a bad podcast. Then they killed him off in 2013. Just straight up ran him over with the car and replaced him with an Italian dog named Vinny. Fans lost their minds. The backlash was insane. And the show brought him back via time travel before Christmas. Since then, Brian's just been coasting. He's lost all the emotional weight that made him important. Brian went from the most human character on the show to a punchline about fake deep pseudo-intellectuals. And man, that's a hell of a downgrade for a talking dog. But you know who actually upgraded? His best friend. Number 2, Stewie Griffin. Number 2 is Stewie Griffin. And unlike literally everyone else on this list, his transformation might have actually saved the show. When Family Guy started, Stewie was this evil genius baby who built death rays, controlled the weather, and spent every waking moment plotting to murder Lois and conquer the world. He called Lois the vile woman. He called Peter the fat man. And he meant it. He spent entire seasons plotting murder before nap time, and it was hilarious. But here's the problem. You can't run that joke forever. Eventually, you gotta either let him kill Lois or admit he's never gonna do it. So in season 6, the show did both. The 2-part episode, Stewie Kills Lois and Lois Kills Stewie, finally let Stewie murder his mom, take over the United States, and rule the world with an iron fist. And then, right at the end, the words "simulation over" pop up on the screen. The whole thing was a computer simulation. His conclusion? He's not ready. And from that moment on, evil baby Stewie basically died. And honestly, thank God they pivoted, because modern Stewie became way more layered. Now he's emotional, dramatic, vulnerable, weirdly wholesome sometimes. His friendship with Brian became the best relationship in the entire series. Underneath all the inventions and sarcasm, modern Stewie's really just a lonely kid desperate for affection and attention. Which is kind of depressing when you realize the most emotionally intelligent person in the house is technically still in diapers. Stewie evolved from one-note villain into the show's most dynamic character. Without him, modern Family Guy probably collapses under its own cynicism. But there's still one man left, the architect of the entire downfall, the king of chaos himself. Number 1, Peter Griffin. And finally, at number 1, the character who changed the most and broke the entire show in the process, Peter G. Early Peter was basically Homer Simpson with a Rhode Island accent. He was lazy, he was drunk most of the time, but he genuinely loved his family. When he screwed up, he faced consequences. When he hurt someone, he apologized. He was a bad dad sometimes, but he was still a dad. That version of Peter wouldn't lock Meg in a basement or tell her he wishes she was never born. He'd do something stupid, realize it hurt her feelings, and try to make it right. You know, basic human decency. Then season 4's Petarded happened, and everything changed. Peter takes an IQ test and gets classified as legally mentally disabled. And from that exact moment, the writers had a get-out-of-jail-free card to make him do literally anything. He's too dumb to know better, so who cares, right? Wrong. Because Peter didn't just get dumber, he got meaner. He started treating Meg like a burden he's embarrassed to be related to. He stopped caring about Lois. He became violent, selfish, and genuinely cruel. The show turned him from a flawed but loving dad into a consequence-free chaos engine who destroys everything around him and never learns a single lesson. And can you track the exact moment the show's tone shifts? Early Family Guy had heart. Modern Peter, he'll shove Meg towards home invaders as a human shield, fart in her face, chain her in the basement, and the show just moves on like it never happened. No growth, no lesson, no moment where he realizes he messed up. Just Peter being a monster and everyone else suffering for it. Peak comedy. Here's why Peter's number 1. His transformation didn't just ruin his character, it changed what Family Guy is. When Peter lost his humanity, the show lost its ability to tell stories with real emotional stakes. Nothing matters anymore, because Peter's just gonna do something insane next week and nobody's gonna remember. Early Family Guy was grounded characters in absurd situations. Now it's just chaos. Absurd people doing absurd things in a universe where morality packed its bag 15 seasons ago. Peter transformed from lovable idiot dad into walking public safety hazard. And the entire show followed him straight into the abyss. So there you have it. 7 characters ranked, and one show that basically performed surgery on itself without anesthesia. 25 years is a long time to stay on the air. Long enough to forget what you used to be. Long enough to turn your main cast into something unrecognizable. I guess that's just what happens when you survive 3 cancellations and outlive most of your competition. Anyway, if you made it this far, drop a comment and tell me which character's transformation pissed you off the most. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and fix that. More content coming soon.
Shut up, Meg.
Well, I didn't say anything.
You just did. Your voice, it's cluttering up my space. Get out.
But
Get out of my house.
Oh, finally! Now I can get myself to the...